Hi, and welcome to Textile Talks. I'm glad you could join us today. We've got a great program, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. I'm Amy Milne, Executive Director of the Quilt Alliance. Today you're joining us for the third interview in our QSOS 25th Anniversary Impact Series. And if you're a regular fan of Textile Talks, you know that it's a weekly series presented on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern in partnership by the Quilt Alliance and our three partner organizations shown here: International Quilt Museum, Studio Art Quilt Associates, and Surface Design Association. All of the Textile Talks are recorded, and you can find them on YouTube. And I'm going to ask Lucy to put that YouTube link in the chat now so you can find it. It is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to see programming from all four of our organizations, and just a great program. And I want to echo our thanks that we gave in the beginning, and acknowledgement to our sponsors, because this would not be possible without them. We're so proud to be able to have their support. The Quilt Alliance's mission is to document, preserve, and share the stories of all quilts and all makers. Today, we're going to present a demonstration of our longest-running oral history project, Quilters Save Our Stories, or QSOS, which is a collection of oral history interviews with quilters archived with our partners at the Library of Congress and the University of Kentucky. QSOS, as I said, was launched 25 years ago in 1999, and to find out more about the Quilt Alliance and the QSOS project, visit our website and consider becoming a member or a donor. We rely on this kind of community support to carry out our important mission, and you can be a member for as little as $30 a year. Just a quick reminder, please use the Q&A box for your questions. That way we'll know where to go when we get to the Q&A portion of our program, and use the chat box for greetings, comments, technical issues. We are using the closed captions feature with live captions. If you prefer not to view the captions, you can turn them off by locating the CC or live captions button or going into your settings. If you're on a notebook or a mobile device, you may have to go into the settings to turn it off or on. The interview we're going to share with you today was pre-recorded earlier this month, so please remember, I will have the volume turned all the way up, and you'll just need to adjust the settings on your device to increase or decrease the volume during the playback. But I'll have it up as high as I can turn it. We are thrilled and honored to have Annie Ruth Ware Brown and A'donna Richardson here today to share the interview they conducted on February 12th via Zoom. We're going to hold, as I said, a Q&A session live with both of them after we play the recording. So if you have questions, feel free to enter them during the program and we'll answer them. We'll have a discussion at the end. So I want to introduce to you just briefly Annie Ruth Ware Brown. She was born and raised on a farm in Lincoln County, Arkansas, with 11 siblings. And she says, we were basically cotton farmers, sharecroppers, who raised all our foods. There were never times we were not busy. When all the work in the fields was accomplished, we were being taught in the home to cook, clean, wash, iron, sew, and quilt. Quilting was taught as a means of taking what one has and making what was needed out of it. Worn out clothes and linens were our materials. Unlike today, nice fabrics are purchased from fabric stores. Annie joined her first quilting group at the Allen AME Church in Puyallup, Washington, and in 2022, she founded the Bethlehem Baptist Church Fabric of Faith Prayer Quilt Ministry in Tacoma, Washington. The group makes quilts for community members, including veterans, for the local hospital and for elderly members of the congregation. We are a group with big hearts, always willing to share our history, art, and quilting skills, says Annie. And today, our interviewer is A'donna Richardson, a quilter and quilt historian. She creates traditional and art quilts along with historical replicas and quilts of African-American children's stories. The quilts of Gee's Bend were the greatest inspiration for her interest in African-American quilt history. When A'donna realized most African-American quilts had no recorded history about the quilt or the quilt maker, she began documenting the history of African-American quilts to preserve their social and cultural significance. This eventually led her to establish a nonprofit to document research and preserve African-American quilt stories and history. A'donna is the founder of the African-American Quilt Documentation Study Group and serves as treasurer of the Quilt Alliance Board. So this QSOS interview is special, and it's part of a collaborative project with the African-American Quilt Documentation Study Group that A'donna has founded and the Quilt Alliance. And the project that we are in the midst of is called the Community Quilt Days, Saving and Sharing the Stories of Quilts and Their Makers. And I mentioned that it's the third interview in this QSOS 25th Anniversary Impact Series of quilt documentation with communities of quilters who are underrepresented currently in the QSOS collection, including African-American quilters. And this project our goal is to change that. A'donna is not only our interviewer, but also a lead artist and partner in this project. And she has been particularly interested in working with and documenting African-American guilds, not just individual quilters, but guilds. So her interview with Annie includes a focus on guild and community activities. As I mentioned, we're going to have a brief Q&A, so do think about your questions and feel free to enter them in the Q&A, but we'll probably answer them at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and play the interview, enjoy it, and we'll have a conversation when we come back live.
Hello, my name is A'donna Richardson, and I'm with the African American Quilt Documentation Study Group, otherwise known as AAQDSG. And today we're here to talk with another guild under the Sewn Narratives of African American Quilt Guilds Project. The African American Quilt Documentation Study Group is a platform committed to documenting, researching, and preserving African American quilt legacies. Our purpose is to preserve our cultural legacy through documentation and research of African American quilts, the quilt makers and their untold stories. Sewn Narratives of African American Quilt Guilds is a nationwide study group project to permanently document the legacy of our African American quilt guilds. If any guild or quilting group is interested in preserving their legacy, please go to www.aaqdsg.com and fill out and submit a documentation contact form. These documentations are free and are done at no cost to the guild or any individual that requests a documentation. We are a nonprofit organization and rely solely on the donations and grants we receive. Now let's get started. I have with us today the Bethlehem Baptist Church Quilt Ministry. I was very excited to have Miss Ann Brown with me, and I'm going to turn this over to her and let her tell us a little bit about herself. Ann, you have the floor.
Hi, A'donna. Thank you. First, I'd like to offer praise for my pastor and leadership of Bethlehem that allowed us to use our church facility specifically for a quilting group. I love quilting, and to have a place that's actually home, because it's my home church, to be able to gather people together. I started to say women, but we have men in our group as well. So we're just so grateful to have that opportunity. I'm Annie Ruth Ware Brown, and I was born and raised on the farm in Arkansas, Lincoln County, where there was 11 siblings of us. We were basically cotton farmers, sharecroppers, and we raised all of our own food. There were never times when we were not busy, and when all the work in the fields were accomplished, we were being taught in the home how to cook, how to clean, how to wash, how to sew, and of course, how to quilt. So quilting was taught as a means of taking what you have and then making what you need out of it. In other words, the materials and fabrics that were used for the quilts that we did when I was a child were worn out skirts and parts of field clothing that still had some useful parts that we used to make the quilts. Today, we get to go into the quilt stores to buy beautiful fabrics and cut up and make them the way that we want. But back then, we took the scraps of whatever it was and we put it together to make quilts. So the history of that art is really important, and so we're trying to teach that in our quilting group.
Okay. Well, I know that I had asked you to show us one quilt, and I'm assuming that is the one behind you, but I believe I have well, is that the one behind you, or no, that's not the quilt we were going to talk about. Just a moment. I need to share the screen to get to the quilt that I want you to talk about that you wanted to share with us today.
Okay, A'donna, now this particular quilt is one of the very first quilts that I made as an adult. Back in 98, I was shopping for a car, actually, and the receptionist was working on a quilt block, and it just caught my eye, and I says, wow, when I retire, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to quilt, but not only quilt, but I wanted to make that exact pattern. And that pattern turned out to be called the Underground Railroad, that gives a lot of history of about slavery and how it came about through the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman. So this particular woman was working with a block where there was 10 of them in this group, and they each were making 10 of each block that they were making. So when they finished, they had 10 quilts. And I thought, so I had 3 older granddaughters at that time. So I started quilting that particular quilt, and I made 3 as I went along. So when I finished, I had 3 quilts, and each of my senior granddaughters at that time received one of those quilts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, thank you. Well, can I ask you, how long did it take you to finish one after you got the blocks made?
Oh, after I got the blocks made, to put them together doesn't take probably another week or so to get all the blocks together in the layout that you want them to be. And I wanted to add that as I was doing that quilt, I made some labels for my quilts, and I named those labels. This quilting idea was inspired by my mom when I was a kid. I wasn't so inspired by it, but it was an art that was taught by my mother. So my mother inspired my idea of quilting, and then I have 4 wonderful children that encouraged me to do the quilting after I retired and was able to sit down and quilt. So they encouraged me a lot, and they helped me to purchase a lot of the things that I need for my quilting. So I have to put that in for my children.
Definitely, most definitely. Well, this is beautiful, Annie. And I know that it's been seen at the Tacoma Arts Museum there
That's
in
true.
Tacoma. Are there any other places that you've been able to show your quilts?
Actually, I don't.
We do
We
some public street fairs and
Yes, we do. And actually, not this particular one. This one was in the public street fair, but there was another one that I did in our street fair that I got 2nd place on, and there was like 60 plus quilts there, and I was number 2, so that was exciting. So it means that my skills are kind of growing as I go with the quilting.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing this so we can get back to our conversation. And why don't you, as the founding member of the Quilt Ministry, what inspired the creation of this ministry?
Well, actually, A'donna, you had started a group over at Allen AME Church, and I was a part of that group, and that was exciting. And then from there, I went to another quilting group. It was in Puyallup, Washington. It was the United Methodist Church that had started a group. And, quilting, there's such unity and love and encouragement from the ladies. They come together not just to quilt, but they just kind of share their inner beings and what the life was like and how they did quilting when they were younger. So I attempted to start this quilting group back in 2016, but that was my timing and not God's timing. And then it didn't coincide with the vision of the leadership at that time. So we were not allowed to do that. And then we just continued to go to the other quilting groups. And then one day we were offered sewing machines, and I had spoken to one of the leaders at the church about one of the rooms to perhaps start the quilting group. And I had not gotten a definite, and I had not pursued it. But then when I got the call that we had the machines that needed to find a new home, I thought, well, I need to shore this up and I get the room. So I did talk to leadership, and it was approved. It was really exciting. And so within 2 days, we had to get a U-Haul truck and some manpower to get over to the area to pick up the machines that were being donated.
Mm.
So we knew with this that it was nothing but God, that it was his timing that says, okay, you can get this started now. And so we had lots of materials and things that were donated, and that's how we got started
Well,
with
that
that.
was wonderful. And
Yeah.
I was there for part of that. I mean, I was over on the
Yes,
other
you were.
side of town, but I was there to witness some of those triumphs that you guys had. Well, tell
Yes.
us a little bit about the mission of the ministry. You know, I've been gone from Washington a few years now, and you guys have just trudged on and have done wonderful things. So why don't you tell us something about the mission?
Well, A'donna, when I first met you and started quilting with you, you gave me a book, and the book was called Fabric of Faith, and it was a guide to the prayer quilt ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And being a quilting ministry in our church, I thought that would be really an awesome theme and name for our ministry, that it would be a Fabric of Faith prayer quilt ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Reading some of the stories in the book, it told of how in putting the quilts together, with each cut, with each seam, that if you pray on it, pray over it, then it has an effect on the individual that you give the quilt to. And so we do all that we do with prayer, supplication, thanksgiving, and sharing with others. And so that's what our mission is, to be constantly praying over, to be thankful for how the Lord provides for us, and to be able to touch as many lives as we possibly can with the quilting that we do.
Oh, I mean, it's just simply wonderful what you have accomplished over there.
Thank you.
But let me ask you, what do you hope your legacy will be? I mean, how do you see the future going forward?
We are, our desire is that this quilt ministry would continue, that we started off with 5 committed individuals to quilt with us. But anyway, we started off with just 5, but now we have 17 faithful quilters. They come Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not all at the same time, but between Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's 17 people that comes weekly for this quilting. And so our desire is those individuals, that they're being taught not just the skill of quilting, but they're also being taught the legacy. They're being taught the history, our history of where we came from and how it is that we are, like where we are today. And so we're hoping that others that are learning this will keep that same love of quilting that we have, so that they would be willing to continue to quilt and to share that quilting with others.
That is just truly amazing that you've been able to do this and share your inspiration. And I know that that's difficult with 1 or 2 people, but you've got 17. And
Yes, we
keeping everything together, I know that that's been a challenge, but you've done that. You've done that, and you've done it marvelously.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of your goals.
Well, our goal is to keep our numbers up in the
Mhm,
quilting,
mhm.
and to continue to reach as many as we possibly can with our work, especially with, like I say, we are a uh, praying quilt ministry. We pray over everything about our doing in the quilting, all of the materials, all of the supplies, they're prayed over. The quilts are prayed over as we put them together. And so our desire is that we would just be able to continue to do that, and to meet as many needs as we possibly can. We are on our campus here, we are anticipating in the very near future to have transition homes, and they should have as many as 75 beds in the structure. And we would like to have a quilt for each bed when that structure is finalized within the next year or what have you. So that's our long-term goal. I received in the mail today from South Carolina a quilt top that is completed, because she came through by Bethlehem in the military, but now they're retired back home. And so knowing what we're doing, I think she has finished the very first top of that pattern that we have for the quilts that we intend to do 65 of. So continue in our quilting and to make a quilt for each bed for the transition home that we hope to have within the next year or so.
Well, that says something about your quilt ministry when you have members that physically leave the area, but they continue to support your goals or your group projects. They continue to stay connected with the quilt ministry. That does say a lot about what you set up there. But I also know that you collaborate a lot with the community. And that project that you just spoke of is a huge endeavor.
It is.
Do you know when you're going to start that, or when you think it'll be completed?
Well, actually, it will be ongoing because it's a lot, and they're not lap size. These are full size beds, so the twin size, the double, and the queen. And so we have it's a long-term thing that we will be working on. We're trying to do so many per month. And like I just mentioned, this young lady has done we have the blocks, but we haven't put them all together to make the quilt top.
Okay.
But she has done her blocks and put a quilt top together. And her size that she's done will fit a queen size bed. I mean, a twin size bed. So
I might want to make one too.
absolutely, I sent you the pattern.
Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Well, now let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit about community engagement and outreach. I mean, oh, I'm sorry, we just spoke on that. Please excuse me. I want to talk about cultural significance and the future of African American guilds. Something that's important to me.
Yes, there's a little bit more about, we didn't go into too much about the community engagement in that we have done several, in our short time of being a quilt group, we have done several Quilt of Valor. We had 2 World War II veterans in our church, and so we made a Quilt of Valor for each of them. We had some special individuals that worked really hard to help us and support us, and so we've made a quilt for them. You just showed of mine that we actually sold raffle tickets for that quilt because we were trying to help to offset some expense of some repair on the roof of the building that we were using. So that was a community outreach in that we got that quilt done, and we were really successful in Tacoma Police Department. One of the collaborations of them working with us, we networked with St. Joseph's Hospital, and we had committed 10, but we made 38 quilts that we donated to the NICU unit, and it was really exciting. We did this with an engagement with this officer from the Tacoma Police Department, and we learned a lot in doing that. Not only were we out doing an outreach, but we learned that we can do even the preemie size quilts and that they're real useful. That they cover the bassinet, they cover the when the moms go home with them, they can, carry their quilts with them, and they just have lots of meaning for them when they and use for them when we do that. So that was one of the things that we did.
I tell you, you've done a lot, and I know you're going to be blessed going forward. Did we discuss no, we haven't gotten there yet. Let's talk about the cultural significance and the future of African American quilting guilds.
Yeah, quilting is actually a demonstration of who we are as African Americans. We came from trying to keep warm. That's how we started the quilting. So the significance of really knowing how this, it's a skill, it's an art, but it's also knowledge of who we are. It's knowledge of our history, of where we came from, what our foreparents endured and what they did to help to keep their families warm.
Yes.
So we want to teach the physical skill, the art, and the history of this skill. We want to teach that. It helps us to share ourselves. We go into the quilt room and we can sit there and feel very comfortable sharing just who we are. Our struggle last week was not very good, but we can.
Hi, folks. We're having a little bit of a network glitch on my end, so Lucy's going to pick up the video where I left off. Lucy, it was at 22:44, and she's going to share. No reason for us to settle on that blurry image for this wonderful video, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Lucy, and let you share your screen, and then I'll pick up after. You never know. It's a little bit windy here in North Carolina. That could be the reason. Wonderful. I don't hear audio though, Lucy. Maybe others do, but.
Sorry about that. 1 second, folks.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your flexibility.
Last week was not very good, but we can share that in this group and feel comfortable sharing it because we become a family actually, and we just enjoy each other as we learn this, as we learn about ourselves. And you can't figure out where you're going if you don't know where you came from. So this African American quilting thing is very, very, very important. It's not just getting together and making a pretty quilt, but it's sharing history that we pass on, to our children and grandchildren, and it's fellowshipping with one another, as you said, A'donna. We reminisce on what our parents and grandparents did. There were groups of them that would come together and sit around the table and quilt. And we didn't have the fancy machines. We were quilting with our hands, and we had made the frames to hang the quilts from the ceiling so that we still had the room for walking around in. And then we would let it down when it was time to quilt. We would all get a chair and sit around it and do the quilting. So that kind of history is great for all of us, and then it's great for us to pass it on.
Well, I was going to ask you for some closing thoughts, but I had another question. Questions just kept coming up. I wanted to know, you said you started quilting when you were a young girl. and
did.
you all had to quilt. How young were you?
Well, in my parents' house, I guess we started to do things as soon as we were oh big enough to stand up, move around. But probably 7 or 8 years old. There was some part of the quilting that we could do. Now all of the things that you need to make a quilt, you can go in the store and buy.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to quilt, we had cotton that came from the cotton gin. So it wasn't batted out like the batting that we put in the quilts nowadays. So we had a branch or a stick that had 3 prongs on it, and we would put the back of the quilt on the floor, and then the cotton went on top of that. And now we have the stick that we can just beat the cotton until we get it to smooth out across this whole quilt.
Mm-hmm.
So that at 7 years old, we could do real easily.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then,
And it was probably fun.
well, for us,
Well,
it was
I'm
fun.
saying
At
that from
at
a
that
person
age.
who never did it. So
Exactly. At that
Mhm.
age, it was fun for us. But after it gets to be something that is kind of like required, because my mom had this saying of the idle hand is the devil's workshop. So we think she kept our hands busy all the time.
Mhm.
So, so we could start quilting really early, because of the different aspects of foot you could do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, Annie, before we close out, I guess my last question to you, is there anything else you'd like to share about the quilt ministry that we haven't covered today? Or is there like any final thoughts or advice that you have for others who might be maybe considering starting a quilt ministry of their own at their church?
Well, I would just say, just be encouraged. If at first trying it doesn't work, just keep trying. Don't give up.
Mhm.
Talk to the Lord about what you're trying to do. Don't just try to do it yourself.
Mhm.
Allow the Lord to direct you in it, and I guarantee you that will work.
Mhm.
I believe, as far as I know, we are the only African American quilt group in this area,
You
especially
are.
like in the Pierce County area.
I checked.
So
You are.
it would be, oh, okay. So we
You
are
are.
the only one. We are the only one. So
In Washington.
in the state of Washington. So
Mhm.
we need to, it's an awesome thing to venture into, and especially if you're doing it in your church, you meet people that they get so excited they come into worship. We have people now that come into worship with us via the knowledge of the quilting that we're doing there. So the church is growing. We are touching people, and that's exactly what you would do if you chose to become a quilting group. And there's we have 3 different churches that quilts with us, 3 different ladies from 3 different churches that
Mhm.
quilt with us at Bethlehem Church.
Mhm.
So talk to your pastor. I'm sure that he would be excited to hear what you have to say about quilting and teaching this art and the knowledge and history of where we came from as far as the quilting goes.
Well, and we also didn't get to, and if you don't find any strengths about resources, how's it done with little nothing? Because I was there in the beginning when you had little of nothing.
Well, actually being done with little of nothing, quilters have the biggest hearts and they share. We have, phone calls that come in and says, "Oh, I heard that you guys have a group over here. We have lots of material that we cannot use. Can we share it with you?" A'donna, you provided sewing machines. You provided so many things. We have racks and shelves and cutting boards. We have rotary cutters. We have pins. We have threads, all of those things that you yourself personally donated. And there are other quilt groups that have donated things. And then people that we give things to, they bring back, says, oh my, this is really nice. We'll be glad to share this with you. We have people who have shared their mother's sewing machines because they no longer sew, or because they didn't sew in the first place, but mom died and left this. So we have sewing machines that were, all you have to do is have the heart and have the Lord leading you, and he will provide absolute everything that you need. We don't charge for the people to come and be a part of our group. We do not charge them a dime to come in to be a part of the group. You just come in, things are provided. Now, once you kind of get a little knowledge of it and you have something your own self that your own special that you want to do, then of course you have to buy that. But to start off in the group of, just come in and sewing, we have plenty of supplies that you could use just right there, because they're donated to us, they're shared with us, and so we shared with others.
You mentioned the donations. I was very happy to provide what I could to what you have over there at Bethlehem. I knew that I could see that you were touching people, you were drawing in people, and it was almost like transformative is the word that comes to mind. Even though I no longer live in Washington and I haven't been there for a couple of years, for the little bit of time after you got started, I mean, I actually saw someone come in, no skills, no nothing, and you, just the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the fellowship, they couldn't believe it's free. I don't have to buy anything. I don't have to pay for anything. And
Absolutely.
and you were always available to help
Absolutely.
whomever, whenever. And I know you have some wonderful people there working with you.
That's
Shout out to Liz Burris. Shout out to Vivian Miller.
absolutely.
Shout out to Debbie Chambers. And so if
Absolutely.
I missed anybody, I apologize. But you had a great crew of women working with you to help you pull this off. And I think you've done a fabulous job, my dear.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you are absolutely right. You, A'donna, was our inspiration. You were my inspiration to keep going. When I would say that I can't, A'donna would say, yes, you can, and you do a good job. And so I kept going and I kept going. And so you are the main inspiration that kept us going to get to where we are with this quilting. And you have provided so many of the things that we need. And we learned, we have, I think we have the best quilting instructor in the whole United States. I do. I mean, she is just phenomenal. She's been quilting since she was very young, and she has real skills in what she does. And she's real patient, and the quilters that we have, they really like her, and she does an awesome job. Now, Debbie Chambers is great, and Liz Boris is great. Vivian is the absolute world champ as far as quilting goes, and she shows very beautiful items, and she helps you in anything that you would like to learn. She's able to help you to do that. And actually, she doesn't charge a dime. She doesn't charge a dime. She will teach you what the Lord has given her, the special skill of quilting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I so appreciate your time this morning, or it's at the afternoon now. I know you're busy. You always have 15 things going on at one time. But I just wanted to close out. Before I closed out, I forgot in my introduction and I definitely didn't want to leave anything out. So before we close, I would like to share with the audience that the African American Quilt Documentation Study Group is also happy to be partners with like-minded organizations like the Quilt Alliance. And its mission is to document, preserve, and share American quilt heritage by collecting stories about quilts and their makers that tell about Americans' diverse peoples and their communities. And their Quilters SOS, Save Our Stories, is the largest oral history collection about quilt makers in the world. And I am very excited to be partnered with them for this endeavor of collecting stories from African American quilt guilds. And with that, I will end. And thank you so very much, Anne, for giving us your time, sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you, A'donna. God bless you.
God bless you too. Goodbye.
Bye.
Lucy, thank you so much for picking up where we left off with the network problem. And thank you all for your comments and your questions. I'd like to invite Annie and A'donna to turn their cameras on now and join us again. That was a wonderful interview, A'donna. You are such a good interviewer. Annie, you're such a you were so generous with your time to do the interview with A'donna, and I think we'll give her just a minute to get her video back on. But I wanted to reiterate what A'donna said, which is that this interview will be presented with the rest of the historic QSOS collection on the QSOS website and archived at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, and also at the Louis B. Nunn Center for Oral History at the University of Kentucky. There she is. Annie, thank you so much. And A'donna, that was a fantastic interview. Sorry, we had a little tech blip in the middle. We've got a bunch of questions already in the Q&A box. Annie, this question is from Diane Richter. She says, were your grandchildren's quilts, the ones you talked about making, were those quilted by hand or machine?
Machine.
Okay.
We did by
they're
machine. Yes.
beautiful.
Thank you.
And Shirley Petaway Green asks, where do you send tops for the transition home? I think people's wheels are turning. I think you might get some tops out of this.
Yeah, I think so too. Should I give the address of the church? Is that what you're
Sure.
asking?
I can, if you say it, I'll type it into the chat box.
Okay, it's 648. No, it ain't. No, it's not. Sorry.
Or
4818 East Portland Avenue, Tacoma, 98404. And there was a question, there was one question in the chat that asked about the pattern. We started off with a pattern that we got from an old quilting book, and it was called Out of the Closet. It was 1.5-inch strips that we made into 9.5-inch blocks. And then we made those to the width or the length of a twin, double or queen size bed. We have since decided that the patterns do not have to be all the same. So long as the quilt will fit a twin, double, or queen size bed, then that would be good.
should fit a twin, double, or queen.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, we got it in the chat box. Anybody interested should check that. And is there a phone number or an email address that they could contact you, Annie?
Okay. Email Annie Ruth 56 at yahoo.com.
Okay.
And the phone number 253-677-8149.
Great, because I
Yes.
did see some other comments too.
Thank you.
Here's another question from Carla Fiedler. Annie, do any of your siblings also continue to quilt?
No, they do not. None. Sorry.
That obligation early on maybe soured it for them.
Probably. Well, we all, we all are different and we all took different turns. I was just telling a a friend of mine that, I'm more domestic than any of the others of my siblings. So I like gardening and I like quilting. So, and I don't have a child that likes gardening, and I don't have a sibling that does, well, one sibling is kind of a gardener, but not very much so, but no quilters besides me.
To each his own.
Yes.
And Rhonda Newman is asking, can we get the quilt pattern for the transition home? Can they email you to get that pattern?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the email for Annie is in the chat. And then Jerry Fortner is asking, are you using historical African American quilt patterns and ones you made growing up? Interesting.
When I was growing up, I don't remember that we had a pattern. I just remember that we used material from items that were worn out in other areas that had some useful part in it. And we use scissors to cut it. Today we use rotary cutters and cutting boards. And we didn't have any particular pattern per se. We just put it together.
Well, that makes sense. And, we have so much more available to us now.
Yeah, we do.
Then it may have just been something pattern passed down from the newspaper.
Yeah.
A'donna, you might want to follow up with Nancy Franklin, who's in the chat. She's with the Brown Sugar Stitchers in Georgia, and she's asking how she can volunteer. We would love to have you, your assistance, Nancy. If you'll send us your, there you go, right there. A'donna put her email address in there so you can just contact her. I did see a question up here in the chat. Let's go back. See if I can find, there's so many beautiful comments, and we'll give you the chat record of the chat so you can see it. But someone
you.
was asking, did you see that, A'donna? Here we go. Mary Traynor asked, do each of you pray when you are together, or do you have a prayer leader? And then there's more to the question, but I'll let you answer that one.
Okay. We don't start anything in the room before we pray, and no particular person leads the prayer. Any quilter that's in that particular day can offer to pray, or we can ask them to pray. So and then we make sure to emphasize that, like as you're working on this item, that it's necessary to put God first in it, so that we pray as we do everything with it. We're not necessarily, once we open with prayer, we fill the room with prayer. So now we're working individually on the items. So we are individually praying as we work with what we're doing.
And infusing that work with your
Yes.
prayers.
Exactly.
It says, do you use quilt patterns? You do.
We do.
Do you receive quilt donations?
We have not received donations. We received lots of fabric to make quilts, but not a quilt donation per se.
She's also asking, would you like to have quilt tops donated by the community? And you've said yes, as long as it fits the parameters of what you need.
Exactly. Well, I have a sister that was in a chat. She just said that she doesn't quilt, but she does. Man, what did she just say? She does needlepoint.
Oh,
that was my sister Deborah. So she does she wants to make sure that that she picked up some of that artwork. Yeah, she doesn't quilt, but she doesn't.
That is so cute.
Cross stitch. That's what it is. Thank you, Deborah.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. And Shirley Petaway Green followed up and said, do you want them all to be the same pattern? Are you wanting all the quilts that go in the transition home to be the same pattern?
We've decided that they don't have to be, so long as they are the dimensions, to fit either of those sizes that we mentioned. They don't have to all be the same pattern.
Great. A'donna, what kind of follow-up do you have? Do you have any other questions that, as you were watching the interview again, came to mind?
I talk with Annie and the group up there. Of course, they're close to my heart because I left them up there and they were just a group of good friends that I would just sew with initially. And so we're getting ready for our retreat. We're going to do Go Tell It's with Annie's group in July. I'll be up there in Washington with them. And so I told them to get ready because I will be documenting their quilts on a 4-day retreat up at Frog Creek Lodge. And we will also be doing the Go Tell It's, which we will send back to you directly. So no, I pretty much try and stay in touch with them when I get a chance, just so I know what's going on. But we've kind of continued this annual retreat thing so that I can stay connected with the ladies up there. And I'm going to make use of that time this year to funnel our Go Tell It and keep that going.
Oh, I love it.
Mhm.
Thank you for doing that. And I think one of the most interesting things to me about hearing your story and also seeing the photos that you shared, that it looked like a lot of the families of the quilters were coming together, and maybe those were congregation members in some of your photos. Maybe that was the opening day or something, but do you find that you're getting a warm response from your community and your congregation beyond just those who are quilting, Annie?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody is all excited about our group and they come in to see what we're doing and to encourage the continuing. And what you did see in the beginning, that was the kind of like the opening. We had what we called a Sister Saturday, kind of organized, coordinated via women's ministry. And what we had was a lot of scraps. And so we brought the scraps together. And we gave each individual could go into the scrap box and pick a color or what have you. And we had suggestions of a block size. And then we gave them a layout, a cardboard to lay it out on. And then we took those and put those together to come up with that great big thing that you saw on the wall. And that was 44 women participated in that. And so
Wow.
when we had that opening and displayed that quilt, then there was lots of family members and church members that came to view that. But that's the eye catcher for our group. When they walk in and see that wall hanging, everybody wants to buy that. We said, it's impossible. You cannot buy this. So that was our start, and yeah, we have lots of people come in, just, not just family members of the quilters. Anybody that hear about it, they come in and they're excited about it.
Well, I imagine too, the recipients of the quilts in the transition home are going to feel a lot of love and
Absolutely.
encouragement for the work
hope
that
so.
they're going to do for
We hope so.
themselves. And that
Yes.
feeds back into the community. And
Yes.
so I think that we're almost out of time, but I think that because we shared your contact information, you're going to be hearing from some folks. And you too, A'donna, you're both doing incredible things. And thank you for taking the time to share it through your interview and through this Q&A. Is there anything else you'd like to say, either of you?
No, I just appreciate having this time to have us sewn narratives. It's all about representation and inclusion, and that works for both the Quilt Alliance goals and the goals of my organization. I feel it's very important to document these legacies of our African American quilting guilds and organizations to preserve their cultural heritage for future generations, and to recognize their artistic contributions, not only to themselves, but to their communities. And so by doing this, we can better share and give a better understanding to the quilt world on our African American quilting tradition. So thank you, Amy, again, for giving us this opportunity.
Oh, thank you both.
Mhm.
It
I'd
was
like to
wonderful.
say a special thank you
Yes.
to you guys, but also a special thank you to my pastor and the leadership at my church.
Oh, yes.
And then to the three ladies that work with me in the covering and teaching at the class, and to my children. My children are all on this thing just talking and encouraging. Mom, I see you. So I see you too,
Oh.
darling, and thank you so much.
Oh, I love that. That's what a great way to end. And I just want to invite everyone to come back. Next week's Textile Talk will be Art Cloth Network, sharing a passion for cloth as art form, presented by SACWA. Again, I want to thank our sponsors and donors. Thank you for making this possible, for keeping it free. And thanks to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye now.
Take care.
Well.